So, hey everybody, it's Eric and Dustin, and this is the first time we are reunited after a long spring break. Eric conducted the show last week solo while I was on assignment, but now we're back and just as destructive as ever. So, good to see you, Eric.
You too.
So, I was trying to come up with some news today, and I saw on Petapixel that apparently there's an epidemic of used film getting bought on eBay, or not used film, sorry, old film, but it's being mislabeled. So rather than just, pointing my finger and shaming the people for buying film off eBay, my question really is, why go to the trouble to, misrepresent the film that you're trying to sell, unless it's like some really highly valued film? I don't know.
What were they doing? Were they saying that it was just mislabeled as in like the age of it, or just like it was totally something different than they said it was?
Well, I think that it was being mislabeled, like, according to the article here, it looks like, let's see. Oops, let's go back. That's Mashable. Hey, Ernesto, how's it going?
All right, how's it going?
Good. Got a little bit of noise in the background there.
Okay, it might be just echo from my apartment. I'll mute myself.
Oh, okay. So I'm looking at the article here, and it looks like what's going on is people are trying to sell Fujicolor Superia 200, but it's really like old, like Kodacolor 100, which is like, I guess, the stuff that you would just buy off the shelf at Eckerd's. So,
Eckerd's.
I mean, sorry, not Eckerd's, CVS or Walgreens. Did I just date myself? Yeah, I just did, didn't I? So I guess in a way it could be like, you claim that you're selling what? Like what film would you risk buying on eBay for? Kodachrome? They don't even process that anymore. What was that really great, awesome, saturated Fuji slide film? What was that? It was like 50 ISO, and it's like really strong reds. I can't remember what that was.
It's not like that Velvia thing, was it? I don't know anything about it.
That's what it was. It was Velvia, yeah. It's expensive, too, but I don't know. Then again, if you're buying film off eBay, you should know a little bit about film, so when you see, you should be able to tell the difference between, like, unprocessed negative film versus unprocessed positive film. Maybe I'm just the only one. I don't know. It's black. It's not brown, folks. But if you're shooting slide film today, God bless you.
Okay, so you're saying then, since I've got an old Kodak disc camera lying around, I should not buy disc film on eBay?
I would definitely, if it looks like a CD, it's probably a CD.
Oh, okay.
I would not try to cram it into your Kodak disc camera.
But I could sell, what were those things called, like those toys that you would, little view projector toys or whatnot?
The viewfinder toys, yeah.
Yeah, I could take one of those out and repackage it as disc film and send it off.
And taken by a 5-year-old, those three-dimensional photos of the lion living inside the zoo, you could make some good money off that.
You probably could.
I was photographing giraffes at the San Diego Zoo when I was 3.
That's right.
Let's see. So folks, Eric bestowed upon all of us that he went ahead and got the new iPad, and we were just earlier talking about some of the amazing broadband capabilities as it has. Do you want to share with the world and YouTube what?
Oh yeah, I mean most of the people, if you're looking at that new iPad, I was debating like whether to get the AT&T or the Verizon one, because the phone I have is through AT&T, and the prices on the data plans are roughly pretty similar. So I was a little apprehensive about, well, maybe I should just stick with what I got because I know what the AT&T network is in our area. But what really kind of pushed me to get the Verizon one was that they include for free, as far as like not an additional fee, the ability to tether any computers to it or anything else and make it basically turn it into a Wi-Fi hotspot over their LTE network. So LTE for me was amazingly fast. It's like Wi-Fi. It's basically Wi-Fi wherever you go. And I had the first generation, so for me anything was faster. But I started trying out that little hotspot thing, and the cool thing about it is when you turn it on, it turns your iPad into a little network Wi-Fi hotspot, so anything can see it via Wi-Fi, which means my phone sees it as a Wi-Fi network, which which also means that I can do FaceTime over it. So I can be on a highway somewhere FaceTiming the kids while I'm barreling down the barreling down the highway at 70 miles an hour.
But that's not the right thing to do.
No, neither is wearing that monocle. Where did you get that?
For those of you guys that don't mess around in Hangouts enough, they are now making Hangout apps available. So one of them that I went ahead and got was just their Hangout effects, and it's basically just a series of. I wish we had this when we were doing the pirate thing. I really do, because I think that would have gone much better than trying to have just the thing in the background. But anyways, no, it's just a bunch of fun little things you can do. So I'll behave.
Now, do you have to install that?
It installs. I assume what it does is it installs into your Flash database on your browser. So it'll be available in any Hangout that you participate in once it's installed the first time you install it in a Hangout. So
okay.
But there's some other cool apps that I've noticed. There's like Google Docs, so you can now share and work together on Google Docs during a live Hangout. And there's some Doodle stuff too, where you can like draw stuff with your kids while you're out of town or rooming down the highway like Eric shouldn't be doing. So, yeah, the next question really is with all the super fast broadband capabilities now that the iPad's got. When are they gonna, Google? When are you guys coming out with a dedicated iPad app, that supports Hangouts? So
yeah,
that's really the last chink in the chain.
I don't know. Can you use the mobile app on an iPad and join a?
You can, but it doesn't have like horizontal or anything like that.
No, that's right, because they don't. Yeah, it doesn't rotate.
It doesn't rotate. Yeah, so technically you could with your iPad, but I feel like there's so much more that could be done.
Yeah.
What's being led on, but then again, Google is Google. So, yeah. Today we were talking about what's the point of today's episode, and at a collages meeting that I host every month, as well as a couple of other photographers that I've been talking to. I try to not get too involved with a lot of the photographer gossip that goes around and stuff, mostly because I try to pretend like I'm just too busy and I'm above it all. But as you all know, it's just not true. So really, honestly, though, I just have kind of taken a back seat to that kind of stuff. But lately, a few things have kind of popped up in my field of vision that really made me realize that some stuff's kind of gotten out of hand in the industry. And I basically, the best way I can put it is I feel like there's this growing exploitation of the naivete of brand new photographers by the much more established, quote unquote, celebrity photographers that are out there, and not photographers who shoot celebrities. I'm talking about photographers that are considered to be rock stars amongst other photographers. And it makes me kind of sad, and at the same time kind of mad, and other emotions that rhyme with glad and bad and all that stuff. So I think that it's time to kind of talk about that. And the biggest topic, the one that stands out the most, is the David J. top 10 thing. What is it called here? The System, a 10-step guide to starting your photography business. Now, before we even dive into this, because I know people are going to want to have their own responses and stuff. Anything that is said on this show is the sole responsibility of whoever's mouth it came out of. And also...
wait, Ernesto's mouth has a lot of food in it right now. Should we wait for him to finish that?
Yes, chew up your French fries there, buddy. But at the same time, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I've never been one to hold back on mine. So... however, I do consider myself and a bunch of us to be part of the community where, we do try to progress the state of the photography industry, and I kind of felt like this was sort of a big step back, and that it kind of needed to be addressed. So, anybody in the room here so far actually gone over this yet, or am I the only one? Anybody else here aware of it? Or am I just talking to myself?
It was interesting though, because so that's just a little. If you hadn't seen it, this is like it's a PDF file that gives you a bunch of tips, and interspersed throughout the PDF file are a couple of ads for their products and services or whatnot. So if you guys have ever read like here's how to get your business going, anything, kind of post or book. I mean, that it kind of follows the letter where they'll suggest put something out for free, and you're sharing this information, but you're also linking or trying to get some interaction with your products and services. So that kind of part I understand, and it was fine with me. But what I thought was interesting was there were a couple tips in there that were, you're kind of questioning the logic behind them, or what are they trying to say here. One of my favorite ones, and there have been a couple of photographers that have jumped all over this, but Zacharias mentioned this one relating to people who basically use manual or just old and outdated and silly and all that kind of stuff, and just to put it on P and move on. And that's where I think a lot of the dust up happened, was because it was perceived that there were some tips in there that either A, weren't right, or kind of disrespectful to other photographers or older photographers. And that was the issue separate for me from the fact that, yeah, there's a show it ad in there. I would expect there to be one if, there was some free info coming out from them. What about you, Dustin? Was there something that stood out?
Well, I'm sure I'll probably hit on a few as we go down the list here, but essentially the ones that really kind of, I guess, the overall sensation was that this was, kind of being pitched as like, the quick and easy 10 steps to getting your photography business started. And if any, I mean, I could be wrong, but I just didn't really see a whole lot of valid business tips, and honestly, I don't know if there really are any business tips in general. Usually business comes from experience and from making mistakes and from learning from them. But, I kind of feel like it's, it is a fluff piece for show it sites, and I understand that. But at the same time, I feel like he's got a very big platform of people that follow him, and therefore, you kind of have to be careful what you put out there if it's intended for the general public, because it could be repeated by them, or you could be, if it's misleading, you are in a way kind of intentionally misleading a lot of people from being successful at something like this. And from personal experience, running a studio is a very stressful job, and you kind of have to learn from your mistakes, like I said before. So for me, I think it really kind of struck a chord with the idea that people that are just getting started are like, oh my gosh, why did I even go to Harvard and get my degree in financial planning? I should have just become a wedding photographer. It's so easy. So I think that's really kind of, for me, it was like, okay, I think we need a reality check here, and I know that this may not have been like a literal piece of propaganda, but at the same time, I think a lot of people will take it literally, and unfortunately, it will sink a lot of ships. So my purpose today was to kind of disperse that. So
yeah,
like, okay, we'll just kind of dive right into it. The first one here, if you haven't been to it, it's thephotosystem.com. And it's very, very nice design, all designed through, Show It website. And I'm not going to show it in the feed here. I'm just going to kind of talk through it and stuff. But, like step one, it is actually a very valid point, making friends, getting to know other people. This was actually the first thing that I did as a photographer. I joined local guilds, associations, things like that, getting to know other photographers. And not just to get referrals from them, but to share any like photography strategies or shooting tips, things like that. But at the same time, joining a local wedding association if you're going to be a wedding photographer, or other small businesses. I mean, joining the Chamber of Commerce is not a bad idea as a photographer, even though a lot of photographers don't do it, because there are plenty of other businesses out there that could actually use your services. So I do think that that's a valid point, and I think it's one of the few valid points in this piece. I don't know. What do you think, Eric?
No, I mean I like that, and it is an important point, and that's it's like where this thing could have gone. It could have been focused on more tips like that people get hung up on, and not tips that would become controversial. Obviously, everyone recognizes that whatever your business is in, you've got to build a network of clients, and it's helpful to build a network of colleagues, people that, like here in Austin, we have a bunch of photographers that network with each other, and if someone gets sick for a wedding or needs a second shooter all of a sudden or whatever, has an emergency, people will step up, and that's only going to come about from meeting other people. So yeah, that to me is totally valid. And then the document starts to go off the rails from there.
Yeah, and I think where it happens, where it actually detaches, is at the bottom of the first page. It says, "My advice is to," and then it's got 3 bullets. And the first bullet says, "Keep helping people whatever the cost." And this is actually something that I've actually had to wrestle with on my own. Is there are people out there who will come to you for advice, or they'll come to you for help, whether it's other photographers or clients or whatever. But there's givers and takers, and you kind of have to get to a point in your business where you have to judge, if continuously helping people all the time is actually becoming detrimental to your business. There's always going to be people out there looking for, extra help, free advice, free headshots, whatever. But if you start setting the tone for constantly being available for people, even though you don't have the time to do it, you're kind of setting yourself up for a business that is going to basically be at the whims of everybody else but you. So that was one thing that kind of stood out to me, because I'm a people pleaser. I always try to help everybody else. So
it's like the nature of the job. I mean, it's like photography itself is a people pleasing. You want to show them the images and have them like them. So it's probably already in your personality. You're most likely not an introvert if you're doing any photography related to people.
Yeah, I think basically the best point in this is good business people know when it's appropriate to say, "No, I'm sorry, I can't take that on right now. I've just got too much to do." So, and you can do it in a respectful way. But the next one, you are good enough. Step 2, go ahead, step out in faith. You can do it. I agree that you could do it, but at the same time, I think this is where it starts to become misleading. That anybody, we wrestle with this all the time in our day-to-day jobs, where whether you're dealing with clients that may not be able to justify your price because they have an uncle with a camera, or why pay for the price of a wedding photographer when you can buy a really nice camera and have your friend shoot your wedding or your portraits or whatever. I think this is where it kind of falsely takes away some of the experience that is required to establish yourself as a professional photographer.
Yeah. It's I get the point there. The point is, maybe a better way of saying it would be, don't let your personal doubts, cloud your ability or interest in moving forward, which is a separate thing from you are good enough.
Yeah, or you could just say you can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It is doable. It just takes work. And for everybody that's in the business, my goodness, if it was super easy, like flipping on a switch, we would have done it a long time ago. But for me personally, it's always a continuously evolving thing, and your success is going to be based on how quickly you can evolve, at least. But there are some good points here, like you feel like your gear is not good enough, that you don't necessarily need to feel that way, or that your portfolio is not good enough. But I think you have to be careful. You want to make sure that you are properly representing what it is you want to shoot. So therefore, carefully select what you have in your portfolio. Even if you would like to have a better portfolio, that's fine. You will eventually. But take a little more care, I guess, would be the best way to put it, when it comes to presenting yourself to the public when you're looking to hire yourself out.
Yeah, it's like all of these tips so far really are dependent on the type of photographer or the type of, the images you want to shoot. This would not at all work for a commercial, someone who wants to get in a commercial shooting, to just say, yes, you're good enough, and don't worry about what's in your portfolio. That wouldn't work at all. It might work if you want to shoot kids parties, and that's what you've got to show, and it's a very kind of reactionary shooting, and all the images kind of look the same. No one's going to hire you based on I don't know, a portrait kind of look to your kid photography. They just want event coverage, and that's a separate list of requirements. And that's probably, maybe this should have been qualified a little bit better about, okay, when I'm talking about this type of photography, here are some tips.
Yeah. And if you scroll down a little bit more on page 2, it talks about not needing a logo or a website or marketing materials. And I kind of feel like that really creates an environment where people feel like it's okay to just have a Facebook page, or it's okay to just have a Flickr account. And I'll be honest, if I was getting married again and I was looking for someone to shoot my wedding, if they didn't have something that showed me that they at least spent maybe $75 to have a decent looking website up on the internet somewhere, then I'm going to be pretty suspicious. Like, how far are they willing to go through with this to make sure that I'm getting what I'm paying for? I think that it's I don't know. It's kind of like just sort of like maybe it is like having your diploma up on the wall in your studio, or in your doctor's office or something like that. I feel like still having your own website, or at least having your own email address with your own domain name, and not just blah 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 at gmail.com. Sorry, Google. But to me, that shows a level of professionalism. You would definitely be a little wary about going to a dentist appointment when your email reminder from your dentist's office says, drdental at yahoo.com. So that's just for me personally. So.
Oh, totally.
Let's see, and we got someone here that says, yeah, Jen, you got a good point. Show it's definitely marketed towards wedding photographers, but at the same time, when it comes to reading the system, it's something that you really have to, like we all do, have to kind of take from it what can apply and what doesn't. So, so before we get too hung up on this one, then you go to the next page, and sure enough, there's a nice, beautiful Show It ad, and I used to use Show It. For me, I decided eventually to transition over to a WordPress site. It's kind of like a hybrid blog / gallery website that I built myself using the ProPhotoblogs template. So, but I'm not going to criticize Show It for what they do. I know a lot of people love it and use it. So, so now we're on to step 3, which I think caused a lot of controversy because of this picture that's on it. For those of you guys that are watching, or not watching, it's a picture of Saint Teresa, and step 3 is to start serving. So service is your true value. I don't know. Before I go off on this, what's your first impression on this, Eric?
I want to know if he paid a license to use that image. That's totally the commercial guy in me. I'm like, I want to see that he licensed that image, because it's a very, very nice quality image. It is associated with something with advertising, because there's advertising in there. Yeah, that was my first thought. Well,
the curious person in me wants to know, like, what would be the implications if he didn't? He's not selling this 10-step guide, but for profit. He's using it as as an advertising piece, I guess. So is that where the violation comes into play? Is that it's technically a 10-page brochure for Show It sites, but he's using stock photos of someone super famous?
It's just the general copyright rule into effect there. Whether or not he has a license to take an image and embed it in there, mm-hmm. And distribute it again is basically basically my take on it. But it's I know he's not implying that Mother Teresa approves of his system. I'm sure. I don't think that
approve of weddings in general the way they become, So
I don't think you could argue some confusion that there's an implied endorsement there, because I'm sure that wasn't his intent. But
for those of you guys that want to see it, the example that we're talking about, it's thephotosystem.com, and we're on step 3. It's basically just a big flash brochure, and you can just click right or left, and we're on step 3, which comes after the big show at site ad page. But it says to start serving, and I feel like I think like he says, camp number 1, never shoot for free. That's like the negative camp. Demand that your clients value what you do. And then camp number 2 is, I love sharing my gifts in a way that benefit others, in the contract because they actually love what I do, stuff like that. That's camp number 2. For me, my first instinct is, okay, let's get real. You can shoot all day long for, because people like what you do and you're good at it, and that's fine. But I feel, for me personally, the ability to call yourself a professional photographer is, there's no requirements to say it, but my mental requirement is, you need to be in it, as a business. Like if you're a professional, it is your profession, then you should be able to make some money at it and grow your business from it. And so, maybe you do one wedding for free to get it under your belt, but I think this all goes back to making sure that, it isn't just about pleasing people and just about, being comfortable with your gear. It's about running a business. It's about being able to produce results. It's about being able to deliver what you promised. So I think that rather than doing all the hand-holding and buying people lattes at Starbucks and stuff, there's the whole back end to it that I think is kind of getting missed.
Yeah. And this kind of touches on the whole overall thing about you have to look, with any of these kind of materials, you have to look at who it is that's producing it and what their background and their status, photography-wise is. When we talk about like David J. putting this out, we're talking about someone who's primarily not a photographer full-time anymore. So to him, the idea of shooting for free for continually helping people in that regard may not be a big issue because he doesn't derive his income from that. Would he say that he would also loan out his software developers for free for projects? I don't know, but it's an important point with all of these kind of education things to look at who's producing it, what their background is, not just are they a good photographer, but what their experience in business has been, and judge that against, for example, I could put out something very particular on, let's say, Photoshop, like compositing or lighting or something like that, because that's like really where the breadth of my experience is. But I'm not going to, even though I shot a bunch of weddings a couple years ago, I'm not going to come out and tell you how to go shoot weddings now because it's just not something I'm keeping up with regularly. So you have to always take that into account when you're reading these sort of things.
I think that I agree with you on that. It's all about being a critical thinker. I feel like when I first got into this, and I went to a lot of the big conventions, I did learn a lot. I also did get caught up in a lot of the rock stardom of some of the photographers that are out there, and I did glean some inspiration from those people. But sit back, take a look, think about, okay, these guys, this is what they do for a living. They do some shooting, but really where a lot of their income is coming from is, selling to other photographers. And I think that, as a responsible adult, if you're going to go into this industry thinking that you're going to make a living off of it, then you need to look at it from a mature point of view and think, okay, I'm not just going to go into this, with some magic fairy dust. There's some real work that has to get done. Do I need to go apply for a loan? Do I need to start looking at equipment insurance? Things along those lines. So just be realistic about it. So the next step here, they're talking about meeting your first clients, and they talk about the hourglass effect. Basically it's kind of like you want to hit as many people as you can at the beginning and then start whittling your way down to get to like the perfect clients and stuff, which is true to a point, and then from there you grow your brand through those clients and expand from that client base and grow and grow. And that is something that is definitely true. Like you would go back and think about, okay, I've shot at these really nice venues, so I'm going to go and provide them with a studio sample book now that I've shot there, and that way they've got an example of my work to show. A lot of album company providers out there will provide sample discounts for studio samples, which are intended to either be used in your studio or, at a venue or maybe another vendor that refers your business. But these are things that we do, money that we spend so that our referrers have the ability to send people to us. It's not just, oh, I shot this wedding for this bride and she loved my stuff so much that automatically means I'm going to get 3 new brides from this one wedding that I did. Like it requires quite a bit of work, actually.
Yeah, it's like, and that actually applies across all different fields of photography. It's like to go with the Easter theme, not putting all your eggs in one basket, because it's a lot of times you get in this mindset, and I've been in it too, where I get a good client, and in my mind they are only going to hire me from now on, and that's just not the case. And so when they hire somebody else for whatever reason, just usually it's like a style thing or something like that, or they just want to change. You go through this like, oh man, I really thought they were only going to come to me. So I've worked hard to get in a mindset of, that's great, I'm happy to work with you guys as much as you want to hire me, and I'm also going to keep adding people in there, because I don't want to have to rely on that one client, or in this case, that one venue to recommend you as their only photographer.
And just kind of like as a side note, for those of you guys that are following along, or eventually will go to this, on step 4 where it's meeting your first clients, there's a couple of asterisks about halfway down. The first one says, if you're having trouble identifying potential clients as a wedding photographer, you're either blind or a serious hermit, because everyone not wearing a wedding ring is a potential client. And if you click the first one after the word blind, it says you may want to consider a different career. I don't know. For me, it's just kind of like, okay, people are coming to this with the hopes that they're going to glean something useful out of it. If this is basically supposed to be just one big joke, or even if it's supposed to be a promotional piece for show at sites, I would probably choose to use a slightly different attitude. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
I could look at that and say, hey, people who are wearing wedding rings are also potential wedding clients.
That's true. With the way rates are going now with divorce rates, anybody's a game.
Why limit yourself?
Yeah, why to only half the world's population?
Maybe partner with like a divorce lawyer.
Say,
once your divorce is set up, we got this guy. Just so you know, he'll give you a discount.
So moving on, we're on step 5 now. Going on to workflow. Workflow is definitely something you want to take time to establish. Getting organized is one thing, but I host a lot of meetings, and half the time what we talk about is workflow, whether it's marketing workflow or SEO or image workflow, all that kind of stuff. But here he has specifics. In fact, I think this one here he's talking about downloading your images, downloading backup images using 4 Lexar Professional Compact Flash card readers. So you can get 4 separate card readers. I actually went out and found one that Delkin used to make that holds 4 cards at the same time. But the idea behind it is you don't have to just download one card at a time. But this one I do feel like is a little bit more useful in the sense that it kind of gives you somewhat of an idea of how to do set up like a Lightroom workflow. If you're not using Lightroom and you want to be a wedding photographer, I highly recommend you go out and get it. But I don't know. This one's a bit more technical. I do feel like it's more of like a boost for the other service they provide, which is called Pass, which is kind of like bypassing sending your clients a DVD. It's basically like an online hosting service for through show at sites. So let's see here. Yeah, and right after that, conveniently, there's an ad for Pass. No more burning discs, no more printing labels, no more shipping hassles, all that good stuff. So it could be something that actually works for you. So I use a different service, collages.net, and they send out a DVD to my clients when the gallery expires. I don't have to mess with it. So, I do think that workflow is something that you definitely want to work on before you actually go out and shoot. Like you need to sit down and think about like, okay, once I have 2,000, 3,000, sometimes 4,000 images. What do I do with them all? How do I get through everything? Because you don't want to be caught up, waiting on figuring it out while your clients are waiting on their images. The next one, it's talk about marketing and branding. And I think this is where they kind of start attacking like different websites and the way people present themselves. It's for me, it's definitely something where I find what works best for me, and it's not what these guys suggest. I do use a WordPress site because I look at examples like CNN and Mashable and other sites that have fresh content getting updated on a continuous basis. And if they're using that format, and I'm a wedding photographer and I'm shooting weddings, and I'm updating new content all the time, then why not use a format that's similar, or something that I can tweak to fit my style? What I don't like is how it's definitely like a funneling process to where they try to make it look like Show It Sites is the only solution for wedding photographers. I don't know, is there a particular like website platform that you've really chosen to go with, Eric? I know you about a year or two ago came up with your studio site.
I've bounced around to a couple different things, and right now I'm using something called a Photofolio, which is a photo PHOTO and then folio FOLIO.com. It's really geared towards commercial, like advertising, editorial photographers. It's probably one of the top ones out there in that space. And then I've got the, just like everyone else, the blog thing going on. But I don't knock on people that have blog sites. I think that's great. I mean, I'm sure they probably get more traffic than I do in that regard, because if they're keeping up with content and posts and not just sticking images up there. But yeah, it's like it's a personal thing. And it's like there's always like these little kind of nuggets that I'm looking in here that are interesting, that are kind of don't be professional, be personal. Is a big little pull quote that he's got. Yes, word of mouth marketing is important, and that's good, but I'm not gonna, like, if you talk to in the commercial space, if you look at people who talk, or art buyers who talk about websites, they'll say, well, they want it to be fast loading, and they don't need the images to be full screen per se. They just want to be able to see them, flip through things, be able to send links to individual emails or individual images, be able to link those and send those links off to their colleagues. So yeah, there's things in there that could knock right over, Show It sites as far as stuff they do that wouldn't work in the commercial. So it's like a give and take. Every photographer or every company that makes this sort of thing, makes a website template, doesn't include something or forgets to do something, and some group out there would slam that particular system because of it.
Yeah, I'm just kind of going through some of this stuff like Facebook and Twitter versus a blog and everything else, and I think it all just kind of goes back to how professional do you want to present yourself. Earlier I mentioned, how serious would you take a photographer if all they had was a Facebook page? And even today, people are still going to have their own websites. They're still going to have, all kinds of businesses are still presenting themselves. They're not just relying on things like social media to grow their brand. They're taking an initiative and they're creating what I call their own like virtual home, which is technically their website. Yeah. And at the same time, they are pitching something like Show It Sites, and I've used Show It Sites. I used it for several years, and it's great the amount of flexibility that it has. But I find it ironic that it talks about making sure that your website stands out and all this other stuff. And I know Show It Sites comes with some built-in templates to kind of get you going when it comes to first starting out building your website. But I find that a lot of times people, will spend the first 3 or 4 months of being a Show It customer, you know, really updating their site and getting it nice and fresh and looking really awesome and unique. And then after a while, they don't have a whole lot of reasons to really make any major changes to it anymore. And then eventually, they're just paying for the monthly hosting fees and stuff. And then all of a sudden, they've got this site that's now pretty stagnant. And as far as the benefits of having something that is that flexible are no longer there because you're not taking advantage of that.
Right.
So,
I mean, ideally, you want to get interaction with these people, and as far as it goes as Facebook goes, you know, he says it's so important. It's not important for me personally because my clients aren't on Facebook looking for photographers. So again, this is a qualification thing where, yes, if you're doing portraits or weddings, family portraits, weddings, children, something like that, then sure, go all towards Facebook. I mean, for me, Facebook is like a nice thing to share images with, but I'm really just sharing them with other photographers. And this gets to a post I had a couple years ago where I talked about this, making sure that what you're not doing is just using social media to get validation from other photographers. It has to be where your clients are, and art buyers are not necessarily looking on Facebook to find these people. And even on the wedding and portrait side, if I was looking for that type of work, if I was looking to hire someone to shoot that, yeah, Facebook would be cool, and that would definitely might get my ears perked up, but I'm still going to go back to I'm not going to hire someone just based on social media. So I want to see, I'm like, you know, you look at these images like, oh, these are cool. I can't wait to see what they've got at their own website. They must be even, you know, even bigger and better, and there's the presentation there must be awesome. So ultimately, these people are going to go back to your website. So that is to me, the most important thing. And once that house is built, then you can, you know, jump on the social media thing and try to get people there. But you want the interaction. You want ultimately the traffic to be at your house, not at the Facebook house, whether that's your images or your blog posts or all that. You want all that stuff to happen there. So everything should be designed with, all your social media really should be designed with getting them off these networks and back at your site.
Yeah, definitely. There's a free app that you can get or plug in for if you have a WordPress blog or WordPress site called Jetpack. It ties into, you create a free WordPress.com account, and really the benefit is that it allows you to track stats within the dashboard of your WordPress site, and it'll even show you specifically what search terms people are using when they come to your site, what sites are referring traffic to you, what pages got clicked on the most on the day that you posted a certain post. It's pretty specific, but it's really valuable data. You don't get that kind of data on something like Facebook or Twitter. You get what they call insights, which is like when people are talking about you or how many people liked your page that day. But for, you know, you kind of have to realize that Facebook and Twitter are effective for supplementing, I think, your online presence, not necessarily replacing it. So, but I agree with you. You know, like with my clients and stuff, Facebook is where I put their stuff if they want me to put it up there. It's not I'm using it in hopes that I'm going to pull business from Facebook to my website.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got another sponsor ad for Minted, which is a company that does design stuff for the Show It Sites platform. So the next one is number 7. Step number 7 is prepare. So I definitely encourage that. However, I do feel like you know, it says 1 week before, communicate, dry cleaning, backups, the night before, charge your batteries, clear your CF cards, get your slideshow ready, check your gear. You know, a lot of this stuff is pretty standard procedure. However, you know, I would go much further than this than just, you know, 1 week before the wedding. You know, if you've never shot at a venue before, you need to go there and scope it out. In fact, I highly encourage that you do it, you know, around the same time of day that you plan on shooting there, so you can see where the lighting is going to be, what kind of gear you're going to need to bring with you. A lot of places have restrictions on where you can shoot. A lot of churches are very strict about, you know, what angle, you know, if you have to be in the balcony the whole time or if you're allowed to roam free. You know, and I think that, you know, that whole time you're keeping clear and open communication with your clients so there's no surprises on the day of. You know, talking about, well, are there any specific traditions that you guys are planning on doing during the ceremony, like lighting a unity candle, or is this a Christian or maybe a Persian wedding, or just things like that. But it's more than just, next week I'm shooting a wedding, I guess I should start getting ready. Especially if this whole 10-step setup thing or guide is geared towards professional, people that are just out, getting started. It takes much more preparation than that, for the actual day.
I used to love going to the venue ahead of time, and I'd walk around with a little piece of paper and a pen, and I would create what I call my chicken scratch drawings. I do these little line drawings of ideas, and so that way when it came around on the wedding day and I had 10 minutes with them, whatever, for some portraits, I wasn't just kind of looking around for something to do. I would go and say, hey, these are the ideas I came up with. Which ones do you guys like? And let's go do those. And if we planned it out right, sometimes we could knock them all out because I'd already thought in my mind, here's where the sun's going to be, here's how I'm going to light it if I need to or whatever. And so that was always worth for me going to that venue ahead of time.
Yeah, I think that that's a pretty major step that I feel like, especially for people that are just getting started, that kind of got left out of this step. I mean, there's some other ones in here. Borrow backups. I like that one. So, Eric, if I am going to shoot a wedding, I can just come over and borrow your gear, right, before I go and shoot somebody else's wedding for a different client.
Yeah, just let me know the day before that you need it, which is fine, and I'm sure I probably will have nothing going on, especially if I'm a wedding photographer.
Yeah, exactly. You just got stuff lying around that you're not using, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Folks, know your gear. All right, I think that's kind of the biggest lesson to take from that particular little joke. But you can borrow stuff from people if they're willing, but for the most part, that doesn't necessarily mean that their stuff's going to operate the same way your stuff does, even if you have the exact same camera. So don't go into this having to figure stuff out for the first time. Practice with your gear. Get out there. If you're wanting to do off-camera lighting, go practice it. Don't just try and wing it. During the first dance, while they come into the reception area, because you'll probably blow it. So it just make sure you spend time doing a lot more preparation than just what's in here. But at least they tell you to pack a snack. I do that. That's for sure. I have a power bar.
Several.
And my 5-hour energy drink. So moving on, let's do number 8. Perform, definitely. Let's see. Smile. Don't bring a lot of gear. I guess it's here's really the biggest controversial point in this entire thing is the spray and pray. And for those of you guys that have been around for a while, you've heard this term quite a bit. But spray and pray, for those of you that don't know, is basically set your camera to some sort of multiple frames per second mode and just machine gun the whole thing. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that unless it's during a very fast action point, like maybe the bouquet toss or something along those lines. But I kind of feel like you want to pay a little bit more attention to knowing when it's the appropriate time to get the shot, like being able to sort of predict what's coming up next. Almost like kind of having a sixth sense about the events that are happening. And it does come with experience. I understand that. The first time out, it's going to be a little bit harder to go on that. But, it's right there. Just click it into P mode and shoot away. P mode does not stand for professional. It just stands for program. I don't know. What do you think?
It's the P thing to me is, there is a point there. When I was shooting these, it was like my last ditch, oh crap, something is changing and I can't react fast enough, because I would shoot manual for everything. Cannot react fast enough to what's going on, and this is an emergency moment that, not necessarily like the kiss or something that I've been standing there and it's an important moment, so I should be ready to go. It's something like, you're walking with them and all of a sudden a couple darts off and into this changing lighting condition, which is just like inside to outside at noon or something weird like that I would, if I felt I couldn't be positive about it, I would flip it either into P or an aperture priority or something like that. So there is that point to it, but this makes it sound like it's more of a regular thing to do that versus like an emergency thing.
I mean, I will give David J. the benefit of the doubt in that perhaps when he's talking about using P mode, he's specifically talking to like your first time out. Maybe he's only saying, use P mode for the first couple of weddings that you do, and then, as you get more familiar with your gear, you become more daring and trying more manual type modes and stuff. Like I'll give him that. But for those of you out there, I'll just tell you right now, I'll make it super simple for you. Put it into A mode, aperture priority, or AV mode, aperture value, and just set your aperture to a wide aperture like f2 or f2.8 or something like that. That right there is going to make your pictures look so much better than what consumers can get with their point and shoots because you've got that really soft background. Leave it at that, and if you want to have something that's an automatic mode, and you'll have much better images than what you can just get from shooting in P mode. So, but see, that's something that you learn. That's one thing extra that you learn because you're watching Photog TV and not reading this top 10 thing.
So there's a bigger issue with this, and that is that there are photographers I know that are very successful shooting weddings that will shoot in P mode for the most of the part. And when this revelation comes up that they do this, and I start to think about it for a while, it's almost like, yes, their images are okay because they do that. Their images are okay. They're not as great as they could be if they had played around with all these other settings. But they make up for it in their it's weird. They actually make up for it on the business side in their personality and their brand. They have a larger than life persona, and that becomes as much of the sale, if not more, than the fact that they shot on P for something. So I certainly don't do it, and the people that I respect don't do it. But I know people are successful with it, and it's because they have that kind of larger-than-life personality that can negate, the fact that they weren't trying every creative option they could. They were just kind of covering it and being done with it.
I think, when it comes to, and this is the key where, determining what type of photographer you want to brand yourself as. Are you extremely creative because you've taken the time to really get to know your gear and actually decide, what's going to be in focus and what's not, by developing your craft? Is that the kind of photographer you want to project yourself as and price yourself as, or do you want to be the spray and pray photographer and basically do the same thing with your clients? So there are very successful high-volume studios that are out there for the sole purpose of shooting as many weddings as they can pack into a weekend. Or there are photographers out there who have clients that hired them because they wanted that one photographer because of their skill level and their experience and the quality of their images. So you just pick what you want to be and then make sure you stick with it. So moving on from that one, because I know that one's kind of a hotbed, produce. This, I think this all kind of depends. We're still kind of in a mode where things are still evolving. And as far as producing, what is it that your clients are going to get at the end of the day? Is it just the digital images? I know that DJ is a big proponent of just giving people the files nowadays, but I remember back, whenever it was he used to actually shoot weddings, that people, for $10,000, they could get him all day. But they also got a Queensberry album, and that Queensberry album, because it's such a high-end album company, partly justified the $10,000 that he was charging. So I think that, having products in your arsenal of, what it is you produce produce for your clients is kind of a staple in a way, but that's different with wedding photographers and portrait photographers versus like what it is you guys are doing for commercial. Because commercial, Eric, I would assume they're not looking for a wedding album from your wedding.
No, right. I mean, they're not looking for that. But even just keep it to the wedding side. This page is interesting because it actually kind of conflicts with itself. If you go down the middle where it says, the old way, it says, and I'm just going to read it here. If you enjoy the sales process, okay, first off it says a product-based business. if you enjoy the sales process and telling a client that they have to pay $10 or $20 for something that you know and they know only costs 20 cents, then stick with it. You'll probably make a little money in the short run, asterisk, but realize you're going to be constantly trying to justify your costs to clients and having to sell them. And then you click on the asterisk. Hopefully you don't feel like a scumbag in the process. So he's saying the old way here is that you're selling them something that you know and they know is very cheap. Well, if you scroll right back up to the top, he says your clients want you, not your prints. Well, that's why it's not cheap, because they're getting you, and that's the idea. You're not pricing something 20 cents because they're paying for you, your eye, your vision, all of that stuff, and that's where it manifests itself as in a product-based business is in the cost of those products. So I don't think there's anything. You shouldn't be feeling slimy or sleazy for selling an 8x10 for, $100 if you can get it. If that's why they're working with you, is because they want you, and you come across in your work, and you come across in your pricing. So I don't like the idea of jumping on a product-based business as something old. Is it more difficult? Yeah, it's probably very difficult to get into that kind of market, but who doesn't start a photography business and think that, wouldn't it be great if I just got hired to do this particular style that's all me, and people hire me for that, and they pay me for that because that's what I do. I mean, you could say the same thing for a service-based business, as he's got right next to it. He talks about a service-based business. Well, if I charge too much for that, I mean, that's the same sort of thing. Aren't I charging too much for something I know and they know doesn't take a lot of time? And it's just, it's kind of conflicting with itself.
I would also say this. I do a lot of senior portraits, and each one of my senior portrait packages includes some kind of a portrait album, and that right there has become one of the biggest business stability products I've ever come up with, because people come to me specifically looking for those albums. But also, it constantly markets to that family. Once you've done something like that, if they have other kids that are graduating, they're going to want the same thing for each one of those kids. Or if you do like wall portraits or something like that, I'm in this not just for the okay, you got married, here's your images, we're done. I'm in the business of, hey, I've established this relationship with you guys. Oh, you're having a baby in 5 years, and as that baby grows, we're going to, do family portraits and stuff, and eventually that baby's going to graduate high school, and on and on and on. I think that the real aspect of running a business is maintaining, getting new clients, but maintaining a long-term relationship with them, because that's where your client base grows from, rather than what appears to be this sort of like, okay, shot your wedding, here's your images, here you go, boom, bye. So.
Funny thing is, I mentioned this, the product-based business little call-out thing. It conflicts right underneath it with the story time, because he immediately tells a story of someone who's going to paint somebody on the side of a sidewalk in Paris and charging 5,000 francs for it. And the lady's like, hey, that only took you 2 minutes. And he says, no, it took me a lifetime. Basically, it took him a lifetime to get that good, regardless of the fact that it took 2 minutes to paint it. And the artist was Pablo Picasso. Well, that goes right against what he's saying in product-based businesses being the old way, because the old way is exactly what he's describing here in this story time, that you're charging for something that costs more than the materials that go into it because of your experience and who you are and what you bring to it. So, yeah, I got a lot of issues with this page. There's a lot of conflicting going on.
And the last one here, step 10, growing your business. It's basically talking about how to grow your pricing over time. And in some ways, some of it's true where, the more demand there is for your services, eventually the higher you should start pricing yourself. But at the same time, I actually had a great professor when I was in college, and he said, have 3 packages and try to have it to where your middle package is the most profitable, because that's probably the one people are going to choose. But if you find that more people are booking your higher package than your middle package, then it's time to raise your prices. That is an indicator, not necessarily that they want you, but that people have more money to spend at that time. So adapt your pricing so that your business can grow and take advantage of the fact that people are willing to spend more money. As far as, if you scroll to the bottom here, I mean, it's kind of funny. It starts at 2002, and it talks about the different increments that he started charging. And then eventually by 2007, he was charging $15,000, and then 2008, Jasmine Star kicked him out of the industry, which I just thought was kind of funny. But
the important nugget there is that his last wedding was in 2007. So
yes, so it's been 5 years.
It's been 5 years. I'm not going to hire someone who hasn't worked on a car for 5 years to change my engine out.
I mean, a lot's changed since then, and I feel like you kind of have to keep shooting. For those of you that don't know, Skip Cohen, he's an amazing marketing guy in the photography industry. Just definitely one of those people that keeps his pulse on what's going on, amongst all the new stuff. But he's been in the business for a very, very long time, and he knows his stuff. But sorry, looks like I accidentally got muted. So Eric, come back. But what I was saying earlier was, it looks like, after 2007, he's not shooting any more weddings. So the problem is that, how relevant is some of this advice based on the fact that, especially as we know, digital photography changes so quickly and business practices change quickly, as well as what's going on in the economy and the market and everything else. I don't think that you can just blindly tell people, what to do as far as running their business. But if you haven't been doing, the actual wedding shooting for 5 years or so. But the other side thing, as far as pricing goes, I think you have to be aware of what the market will bear. Keep in mind, this is again the critical thinker in me. David J is based out of the West Coast area. And let's see, Eric, you're back. I can't hear you, though.
Oh, this is a test with mine. I was just making sure that everyone could hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I'm just kind of repeating what I said. Sorry, everybody. But at the same time, think about it. The West Coast, people are spending more money on wedding photography than, let's say, in Akron, Ohio. So it's all about making sure that what spectrum, on the wedding spectrum, what types of weddings that you want to shoot, making sure that you're able to refer business to other vendors that are within your price range, that level of weddings that you want to shoot, and then and going from there. Don't just blindly keep raising your prices, because you may actually price yourself out of weddings altogether and take a really big hit. But at the same time, make sure that it's worth your time, that you're not underselling yourself or hurting your other co-photographers in the community by undercutting them. So really quick, we're just going to let everybody weigh in. Does anybody have anything like reactions specifically to what we've talked about today? I know we've kind of covered quite a bit here, but I'd like to hear what some of you guys have to say. Everyone's scared.
We get the shoulder shrug from Ernesto.
He's like, Dustin talks so much, he just says it all for everybody, no matter what your opinion is. We just cover the whole spectrum. Well, I think it's definitely one of those things where you have to, you really have to kind of dissect what's out there. As Jen is saying, it's got some good points, but at the same time, just don't take things so literally or naively. Definitely kind of process what's out there before you just digest it all, all the way down. So.
Maybe we should have a future show on our resources that we like, like kind of educational resources or something.
Yes, for those of you that are actually, dead set on making a living in the professional photography industry, you can let us know if there's particular news or information resources that you like using besides us. But there's a lot of great sites out there. Creative Live is always one of those that we are always going to want to promote because they are selflessly producing wonderful, how-to videos and stuff, hands-on kind of stuff on how to improve your craft. As well as other stuff too. So maybe what we'll do is we'll compile a list, like our top favorite, knowledgeable, well thought out, resourceful online resources for really starting your business. All right. Well, Eric, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for watching this episode. You'll be able to catch the replay of this later today or tomorrow, probably tomorrow, at photog.tv. If you got any comments, you can send them to us at photogtv@gmail.com. And our page is on Google Plus as well. So if you ever want to be a part, if you're watching this on the stream and you want to be in the Hangout, if you just circle that page, then you'll see it when we start the Hangout, and you can catch it there. And since we mentioned Creative Live, I believe as soon as you get done watching this, you can head on over to Creative Live. I think right now they have a live class on lighting or something. I just saw the tweet come across not too long ago, so I'm going to head over there and see what's cooking on that. But please let us know what you guys think and ideas for future shows, and as well as ideas for learning resources if there's something you've come across. And maybe we can put together a big old list and share it out, and that would be really cool. So thanks a lot for joining us this week.
Cool. All right, everybody. Have a good one.
Take care.